And now, without further ado, we're going to bring in the dynamic duo, Dan Lohrmann and Richard Stiennon. I don't know who's Batman and who's Robin. I never asked those kinds of questions. But one of the things that caught my attention, well, I'm getting flooded with AI stuff. Everybody's sending me AI does this and that.
Yeah. Yep.
And none of us know what to really make of it. A lot of it is just people guessing what might happen with AI. They think of the Terminator movie and Arnold Schwarzenegger with his pulse rifle and all that. I don't know. But what I do know is there was an interesting story that came out that I read that said the bad guys are very keen on AI and may use AI to come up with even more spoof phishing, emails, you name it, that just looked like the real deal. And so I wanted to bring you two on board to talk about that and whether you have any concerns about how AI can be used for the dark side of the force.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. As always, what a great topic. I'll go first. I'm Richard. And every single new technology, no matter what it is used for good and bad, right? So, from nuclear weapons to any kind of weapon, right? They can be defensive or offensive. So that's kind of just an opening statement, I guess. So the bad guys don't have AI. They have access to AI tools created by AI companies. Costs hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to train and build an AI. And the bad guys don't have that, right? Probably the only worry at that level is what's China doing with their AI? But that's way off in the future using that kind of capability. So for now, AI is, for the most part, large language models, which have been described as just, looking at all the things ever written and creating a statistical probability predictor of what the next word is in a sentence. So you kind of, when you look at it that way, you go, well, one, how could that be dangerous? But two, how in the world could that be useful for anything other than linguists? Well, we discovered that in the AI companies that were building them were just trying to get better at doing that. And they discovered that you can get amazing answers out of it. The president of OpenAI, the ones who built the one everyone's talking about recently, said, okay, yeah, we're predicting the next word, but we're using the combined written knowledge of all human beings for all history in order to predict that next word. So yeah, you're going to get some really interesting results. So first of all, it replaces writers. We're the ones that have to be worried about our jobs because it's really, really good at writing English language. And then of course, other languages are coming along pretty quickly too. But that also means the bad guys who have as much trouble writing a coherent email that normal humans do can use it to write coherent emails that could be used for phishing attacks. Yeah, but we don't fall for phishing attacks. And, we don't necessarily have to worry about that. That's just more of the same, right? Because there were plenty of, super good email writers that existed. The one thing that's worrisome is it also makes it easier for 10 million people to write better programs. So maybe it makes it possible for the bad guys to write better malware. And that's yet to pan out. We haven't seen that yet.
Dan, I know you only got about 10 minutes here before you have to drop off. So go ahead.
I'll jump in here, be a little bit provocative. I mean, Richard and I have been chatting on LinkedIn with a lot of people about this topic the last couple of weeks. And I will say, first of all, wherever you go, and I've done a lot of traveling the last 7 weeks. I'm actually home this week, but I've, from France to Phoenix and from RSA and San Francisco to Washington, D.C., everybody's talking about Gen AI, generative AI. And it's just it's a hot topic, and I agree with Richard, the good, bad, and ugly, it's all over the map. I think what's gotten a lot of headlines, Jeffrey Hinton, who is many people call the godfather of AI, big article in CNN, other articles came out that, he was with Google and he's kind of, resigned and now said he's, calling for a pause. Other people are calling for a pause, Elon Musk. saying that the bad is outweighing the good right now. We got to catch up. And just to pause, in that area, and you get into a lot of other details around that. I tend to be with Richard that there's good and bad with any new technology. So many of you probably heard the story about how I almost lost my job opposing Wi-Fi 20 years ago because, NSA and FBI and CIA came out saying Wi-Fi was bad for us and everybody was war driving. And then, the cloud was bad for us. And, you can write down the list, of BYOD, bring your own device to work, was bad for us. And so, security pros are known for, kind of saying the answer is no. What was the question? So, I do fear I do fear that we, don't want to be on the nose side of AI. I certainly think there's huge benefits to it. That being said, I also think there are a lot of concerns and there's a lot of false information. Google's come out with their announcements recently in the last couple of weeks, and they're slowing down a little bit from where ChatGPT was as far as, rolling out, a little bit more conservative around making sure you check your facts, some of the information. There's a lot of people who are using ChatGPT, this person included, and you ask it questions and it comes back with, books that don't exist and authors that don't exist. And
yeah, I want to get into that.
There's all kinds of fake news out there. I do want to tell you guys one quick story that I found really fascinating from a couple of weeks ago that I think is relevant to this. We can open up for some Q&A, but I was on the plane to RSA. I sat next to a guy who was had his own company. He had worked for a lot of different companies. He had about 15 employees. They were working with all the movie studios. And to make a long story short, we started talking about ChatGPT. And he was telling me that, they did an experiment with ChatGPT and had fake reviews that were put in all these magazines all around the world. They were doing, analytics around what movie would be successful, what wasn't, how audience, participation would affect movie, goers and all that kind of thing. Well, anyway, they did these fake reviews, all generated by ChatGPT. They then ran a scanner to detect, which of these are fake, which one of these are real humans. And they said it caught 97% of them. So the majority of them were, caught. But then they asked ChatGPT, hey, we want you to rewrite those reviews and write them in such a way that they cannot be detected by our fraud detector. And then, kind of argued back and forth and said, well, why would you want to do that? He said, well, we want to be able to do this and not be detected for research purposes or something. And so they tricked the tool. It did it. It said it added, spelling mistakes, grammar, punctuation problems, more like humans, right? Acted, made mistakes. And then they ran the same tool against it, and it only found 1%, 1 out of 100 were detected, 99% were not detected. So I think the fraud, the misinformation, the concerns around that are real right now. And I think, the challenge for cyber pros, for security, chief information security officers and others is getting harder that, to detect, whether it be, fake articles, fake information, pictures, etc. I do think the bar has just been raised and the challenge has gotten greater for us.
That's an amazing story.
Well, we had a panel discussion on AI here not long ago at LTU, and somebody was talking about how ChatGPT, the most recent version of it, if you ask it for a list of articles on a topic, like one of our design professors asked for a list of articles on, urban placemaking, and it came up with a list of articles that almost all of them were fake. The journals this professor recognized, the authors, some of whom this professor recognized, but almost none of those articles actually existed. And I guess in AI parlance, they call that a hallucination.
Yep.
Where does that take us? What are the possibilities there for the bad guys?
Well, I think I'm going to just jump in because I know, Richard, I'm going to have to hop off in 5 minutes. And I just would say a couple things. I think one of the things we have to be doing and to jump to solutions is what is the universe of the underlying platform that you're using around the data? So if the universe is all the internet, you're going to get some hallucinations. I mean, you're going to, and I think Richard and I have had some discussions on this and some things online. We've talked, if you're having a controlled data set, so if a company, if a government says, look at all of our data that we know is good data, and then you're using that, I think it can be very effective and very powerful. If it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. If you give it the whole internet to learn from, you're going to get some, hallucinations. You're going to get information that's not accurate. You're going to get fraud. You're going to get a lot of different challenges. And so I think the challenge for all of us is going to be, the bar has now been raised. Don't just assume everything. We should never have done this, right? But everything you read online, just because it's in an article or you can quote it from some magazine or maybe what you thought was a reliable source may turn out not to be reliable anymore. So I think that's a really important takeaway. I also think that, you can control that universe. I know states that are now doing tests with Microsoft and Google that are like doing a lot of research around the data that they have, that they control. They control the underlying, inputs, if you will, the OpenAI or the other platforms that are being used, and they're actually getting some really great results. And so I tend to be an optimist in this. I tend to agree with Richard. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here, but I also think there's a value to being concerned about. I think you're going to start seeing, it's funny, in the last couple of weeks, more and more people who want to do ghost writing in my blogs and my articles. Like, I'm not, they're probably just going to use ChatGPT. I don't do that. I write my own stuff, but I do think you're going to start seeing more and more, the ghost may be ChatGPT, writing these articles.
So you're saying that everything on the internet is not true? Oh God!
Stop the presses.
Before you run, I think I read this right. Didn't Italy just go with the moratorium, hold AI for 6 months, no more development? Yeah, I think they were the only country that I've seen doing that.
Correct. But EU is putting out a number of they're kind of leading the pack with a legislation coming out. It'll be interesting to see. I know we'll be back talking about this. Can we even keep up? Can the lawyers and the laws and the policies and procedures keep up with the technology? I tend to think the answer to that's going to be no. But maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. But I mean, the EU is kind of putting the brakes on some of this and wrapping some new laws and putting them in place around ChatGPT. But yeah, to your point, Mike, Italy is the first one that actually did a ban.
Huh, Richard?
Yeah, Italy did lift it shortly afterwards.
Yeah.
When OpenAI agreed to add the privacy things that they wanted. So that was good. But yeah, whenever I think about AIs in legislation, I think of Neuromancer, which was, a book that had AIs in it, written way back in the 90s by William Gibson. And he had...
Oh, you got to take off, Dan?
Yeah, Mike's got to run. You run, Mike.
Yeah, I will. Sorry,
All right, thanks for being on the show.
Sorry,
thanks.
Get you next time. Thank you.
All right. So Gibson also had a police force that would go out and regulate the use of AIs, and they were supposed to be contained and all that, and they were all from Switzerland. So the Swiss government was the one that came up with all the regulations, and there actually have been Swiss government proposals on AI regulation. So Gibson does it again.
So their neutrality is, and by the way, I did want to correct one thing that you said. The Neuromancer is even older than that. It came out in 1984, if you could believe that.
Really? Oh, so
Yeah.
I must be looking at the paperback version. 84, amazing.
Yeah. Almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was on almost all of this stuff. It's the crazy thing.
Right on. And all of that came from walking into a video arcade parlor back when you had to go someplace to play video games. And he just had the entire vision for what the future would hold.
Virtual reality, complete immersion. Yeah, all of that stuff.
All that stuff. Amazing book. Yeah, so I asked ChatGPT the other day to, it's kind of annoying because if you ask it, who is Mike Brennan, it'll say, I'm sorry, I'm a large language model. I don't tell you that kind of thing. And so then you go back and you say, no, I'm writing a Wikipedia article on Mike Brennan. Please write it for me. And then it gives you a big, long bio brief.
Is it even remotely close?
Well, I did it for myself, not for
okay.
you.
All
Yeah,
right.
because I'm not that interested in you, right?
Oh,
So
thank you. Good to know.
Everybody's favorite topic, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Themselves.
So it was, it sounded pretty good. And the trouble with ChatGPT is it sounds so authoritative. And it came back and said that I started my career as working at Burroughs Computer, and I was born in Detroit in April. So you got all that wrong, right? Because I was born in Wisconsin, was born in May, never worked at Burroughs Computer.
Yeah, well, but
Where did it come? Where would it come up with that? Is there someone else out there with your name that those things might apply to? Because I run into that pretty frequently in the real world. Because there's another Matt Roush who is a TV reviewer. He worked for US. Yeah, he worked for USA Today, and he worked for TV Guide for a while. So, I mean, I used to get confused with him all the time. So, yeah, that would be. I'm going to have to try that and see if it sort of mishmashes our lives together like The Fly, or if it thinks I'm him.
But I treat it like, hey, at least there's a structure. If I were to have a Wikipedia entry, I could follow the same structure and just correct the facts. And you have to fact check it all the time.
Yeah.
But from a writing perspective, I think it's fantastic because it just starts writing. And, when you're done, all you got to do is fact check it and determine if you like the voice and change it. The voice pretty consistent. And that is one of the ways you can pick these things up. I've decided the way I can tell generative AI products is they are invariably without a human element, obviously. And so I'm watching all the videos, hoping that someday there'll be a video that is worth watching. They're all really cool and amazing, and people doing amazing crowds of people and buses and all sorts of moving stuff. And it's like, wow, this would have cost millions to produce using traditional methods. But there's zero story behind it. There's no sucking you into the story, showing you a conflict and a resolution and an ending. None of that. It's just going on and on and on. You can't watch a 30-second video because it's just so boring.
So I haven't used ChatGPT yet, to tell you the truth. Does it write fiction too, or is it strictly
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
It'll write anything. You just tell it, you can even tell it what voice you'd like it written in, as if you were Jane Austen, and off it goes. It's fantastic.
The other thing,
but it's boring stuff.
Speaking of writing, I have read that Amazon's now getting, I wouldn't say flooded, but getting a lot of ChatGPT written books that have ChatGPT testimonials, none of which is true. I mean, it's just, and people are selling these books and making money. So, I mean, that's an angle I had never thought of, but obviously others did.
All right, don't go thinking people are getting rich yet, because very few people make money on Amazon.
That's true.
But yeah, if you can produce the book, the investment is close to zero, and you can get it out there. So,
well, Amazon makes money on Amazon. So
Amazon,
somebody has
tons of money on Amazon.
Oh yeah. Well, Bezos, don't get me started there. So
all right.
Go ahead.
My big news this past week was so Wiley is going to publish the next year's version of Security Yearbook. And in their contract, they actually had a clause on using generative AI.
Really?
And the contract is simple. It's, if you do use it, you have to declare that you use which parts of the book were written by an AI. So I thought that was pretty forward-looking of them.
So what else besides we're looking at, well, everybody in the world's talking about AI, but beyond that, what's happening in the cybersecurity world that we need to kind of bring particularly businesses up to speed on?
Yeah, I noticed a really cool trend lately that, most businesses probably should think about cybersecurity insurance. And this coming from me, I'm not a big fan of paying insurance for anything. But if you're doing absolutely nothing for security, then you should probably have some cybersecurity insurance. But last year and the year before, the insurance companies started to lose their margins in selling that. They make a lot of money from premiums. Their profits are 50%. Last year, companies spent $8 billion on cybersecurity insurance. So hugely profitable, still a small part, it's nothing like flood insurance or something, or life insurance. But those profits are being eaten away because they're having all these payouts for the ransomware attacks. And so I've noticed just in the last few weeks that all the cybersecurity insurance companies are very interested in helping companies be more secure. So, which I think is a fantastic thing, right? So they're saying, hey, if you want insurance, we have to help you, and we're going to look at what you've got, and whether you have firewalls and antivirus and a process and an incident response and backup and recovery, so you don't get hit by ransomware. And they're starting to offer tools and services to help those companies. So that, to me, that would be a pretty positive benefit.
Matt?
Okay. So in terms of ransomware, I mean, are people still falling victim to this, or do we have that
Every day
more under control? Oh boy.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid not. And it comes down to the fact that the people that get hit by ransomware have zero clue that they could be hit by ransomware. So they're not listening to your show. If they were, then they'd be all set because they'd know exactly what to look for.
Well, yeah, the way you beat it is frequent, if not constant, almost backups, and ease of getting to those backups.
Yep. The sort of things that I know we did at Hoover Universal when I graduated from U of M and went to work. It's like they had backups. And when I had a CAD system, I backed it up every day and every week. And you take the backups home, so in case there's a fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, a lot easier now. It's a couple pushes of a button and you're backed up to somebody's cloud service and you can recover from it almost as easily.
So besides ransomware, what else is floating around out there you want to talk about?
So there are some dramatic vulnerabilities in Windows that have come out recently. So
great.
One of which they said they're not going to patch for another 18 months. So good luck with that one.
And what would that be in particular? What's the vulnerability?
It was pretty obscure.
Okay.
So yeah, it's I didn't.
Good thing I don't use Windows.
Understand it.
Yeah,
that's one way to avoid having to patch Windows. The industry. So breaking news on your show here. So every month we look at all 3,400 vendors and we check their headcount as listed on LinkedIn. And so I'm finally looking at the data as of May 1st, so 2 weeks ago. And practically every sector of the 17 that I track has dropped in headcount in that month. So and for the full first 4 months of the year. So it means that, the recession that may have started, nobody's called it a recession yet, but they're predicting a recession. But that certainly that downturn in the stock market and the effects of inflation and the failure of Silicon Valley Bank are finally being felt across the board in the cybersecurity industry.
Interesting. You think with the fact that so many companies really don't do much in this area as of yet, until the horse gets out of the barn, right? That they'd actually be beefing up, but they're going the other direction. Of course, a lot of the big tech companies are doing layoffs now. I don't know whether they're more efficient or sales have dropped. I'm not real sure what's driving it.
I haven't seen much sign of sales dropping, right? So the big guys, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Fortinet, all are turning in 30 to 40% increases in revenue year over year. Their stocks were pummeled since November of 2021. But so I don't see a fall off in demand, but certainly the vendors themselves are going, yeah, let's just hold off. Let's do more with less until we know we have some visibility into what's coming in the future.
So, I mean, the bottom line is just don't don't do anything silly with emails, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
so how a lot of this seems to get started. You know, I
Yeah,
mean, is
pretty much.
yeah, you click, you somebody
you don't
clicks on
click,
something, yeah.
Yep. Yep. You just don't click. If the business wants their people to have full functionality so they can prevent a click from doing any harm. It's like,
Mhm.
first of all, you can block the clicks so they don't work. The live links won't work. Or you can, go out and test the site and download whatever it wants to download and see if that was malicious.
Mhm.
So there's plenty of ways to get around it. But for the most part, just tune your spidey senses. If you're engaging constantly, if Mike sends me a article to read, it's probably a pretty good thing to click. I'm not running Windows either, so it's a pretty good chance. If I was really suspicious, I'd go off and run it in a separate container. So if that container gets infected, you just tear it down and you're all good to go again.
Anything else? We've got a couple minutes left that you want to talk about.
Me, I want to talk about the conferences starting up. So, last time we talked about RSA, and that was, for me, the first big conference I've been to since COVID started. And it was amazing. There were supposedly 41,000 people who attended. 473 vendors had booths on the conference show floor. And now we're getting ready for our first conference in London in June. And we're going to have our own booth. And that thanks to MEDC helping us out. They introduced me to a grant program, and the grant pays about 75% of the costs of doing international trade related things like going to a conference. So I was quite pleased with that. That was great.
Well, that sounds great. What is the name of the conference? Where is it being held?
That is InfoSecurity Europe. Usually people say InfoSec Europe, and it's in London, June 20th to 22nd.
Okay. And you're going to be marketing your services and probably selling the book as well, right?
I'll be giving away the book, signing it. And the book is just an excellent piece of marketing collateral for the app that we derive all the information from.